Welcome back to the weekly Royal Recap, where we do just that, recap the week in royal news. My name is Madeline, and I have been creating royal-related content across multiple platforms for 5 years. And this week, we're talking about quite a lot, actually. The King and Queen were in Northern Ireland, Prince William was on a podcast, the Chelsea Flower Show was this week, and we have more news coming from recent investigations into the former Prince Andrew. So with that, let's get into the news. Starting off with Prince William, he visited the site of a new housing project on Thursday, part of the Duchy of Cornwall. This visit is part of a 2-day tour of the West Country, where William visited Cornwall in the Isles of Scilly, where he sat down for a podcast on Heart FM, but we will get into that later on in the episode. I feel like we've been talking about the Duchy and royal finances quite a bit as of late, with reports saying William is selling 1/5 of the Duchy in order to fund housing and clean energy projects over the next 10 years. Now, homelessness is one of the key priorities for the Duchy. Their first housing project under William kicked off in December 2024 in Cornwall and is said to be an ongoing project taking 30 years to complete. And it's interesting because this isn't just throwing up houses and moving on to the next town. The actual approach to the construction of the housing projects aims to reduce environmental impacts that construction may cause, so reducing the carbon being used, and that again just ties back to the Duchy's environmental mission. Now that sort of moves us into our next topic, although not directly. It was revealed by the Times this week that the Prince and Princess of Wales pay a yearly rent of £300,000 for Forest Lodge in Windsor. William and Kate made the move into Forest Lodge last autumn, officially signing the lease back in July. Now, why is this such a big deal? Well, this is the first time that their rent on any of their properties has been made public knowledge, and it is a strategic move to better transparency over royal finances. William, or really the Wales family, has really been seen as this pioneer for a new monarchy. When he eventually becomes king, I think this sort of transparency will be more of the norm. It has been reported that this was a mutual decision between Kate and William to disclose their rent publicly, and now obviously that, along with the upkeep of the residence, comes out of William's private income, with the majority of that being $23 million coming from the Duchy of Cornwall. Now, of course, you can't really discuss royal rent without the issue of Andrew being brought up. You may remember his 2 decades of peppercorn rent on Royal Lodge. Many were not happy about that. Now, the Public Accounts Committee actually launched an inquiry into the Crown Estate as it relates to royal family leases, I think back in December, and they're going to be taking a look at if the Crown Estate is still acting according to the Crown Estate Act of 1961, and that really outlined how they need to operate, essentially. And so it will be interesting to see what comes out of that. Prince William joined Amanda Holden and Jamie Theakston on Heart Breakfast to speak exclusively about the opening of a new wing at the Isles of Scilly Hospital in St. Mary's, and that wasn't all they talked about, obviously. We learned quite a bit from this interview, and you can give it a listen. It's right available on YouTube, just 15 minutes. But William talked about the work that the Duchy of Cornwall is doing in funding the new wing of the hospital. That will expand medical services to its residents, and also the construction of 10 sustainable built houses for essential workers as Scilly faces a housing shortage. He talked about also being an Aston Villa fan, and he was seen cheering them on during the UEFA Europa League Championship. He shared that he became a fan back in 2000 when he attended a game with his friends and just really liked their values. He also shared his music preference. Again, this is a great deal of information was covered all within this 15 minutes, but he apparently prefers dance and motivational music over sad music, which I get because sad music can bring you quite down. Now, William was also asked about Kate Having just come back from the 2-day trip to Reggio Emilia last week, the hosts asked about also the difficulties faced during her cancer diagnosis, and William really praised her, saying that she was a great mother, amazing wife, and how their family couldn't cope without her. And yeah, William has just really sang nothing but praises for his wife, and you can really feel the love that they share. Obviously, we know William has opened up about how difficult of a journey it's been in other interviews, but you can really tell just how very proud he is of her. He called her an early years pro, and it seems like Kate's work in this sector is really something that she dives into deeply. With William saying that she spends God knows how much time now looking through all the paperwork, that there is just so much of it. When asked about future international trips for his wife, William really cautioned that since these trips do take a lot out of someone, that they'd have to strike a balance in making sure that she is obviously well rested. Like I said last week, Kate may be attending Earthshot this year. Her last attendance was in 2022 in Boston, and this year it is in India. So I look forward to seeing if another trip is possibly on the horizon for her. And now we are taking it to Northern Ireland with the King and Queen, who'd made a multi-day visit to the country. On the first day, they visited Thompson Dock. This was the last place the Titanic stood prior to taking on her voyage. And their visit was a vibrant celebration of dancing and creativity. They also visited the Titanic Distillers, which is the first Belfast-based distillery since Prohibition. King visited with W5 Life and those who benefited from the program, as well as the Northern Ireland's King's Trust, while the Queen visited Bain Street Primary School and learned more about what the school offers in terms of helping families navigate certain services in Northern Ireland, as 19% of its pupils are refugees or asylum seekers. Later in the day, the King and Queen received the First Minister and Deputy First Minister of Northern Ireland at Hillsborough Castle. Hillsborough Castle is 20 minutes outside of Belfast, and it is the official residence of the monarch in Northern Ireland. On day 2, the King received some bird droppings on him while in Newcastle. Someone from the crowd said that it was good luck, and the King smiled, so hopefully it didn't dampen his mood. He visited Newcastle's community cinema and then the pantry food bank, where he helped pack boxes for those in need. The Queen, meanwhile, helped to pour a pint at Parsons Nose Pub and Restaurant, and she made a joke that she was not quite the expert, but that her husband is. Later on, the King and Queen attended a garden party at Hillsborough Castle, where they spoke to guests across the volunteer and charity sectors. On day 3, the King and Queen were in New Innards, and the King visited gardeners and volunteers at Ard's allotment. The Queen visited staff and volunteers at Women's Aid, and later on the King met musicians and even tried his hand at ukulele. The Queen enjoyed ice cream, and the King baked a VIP dessert during a visit to a community hub. This trip had a lot of really lovely moments, and we talk a lot about this idea of soft power, and this trip and even the US visit is really a good example of that. It is the power of making people feel seen and thus fostering that sense of goodwill. Moving on, members of the royal family attended the Chelsea Flower Show, including the King and Queen. They toured the show gardens and grounds, which had 400 exhibits. Also, the Devon County Show was this week, where the Duchess of Edinburgh attended and met with exhibitors, which looked like great fun. Now, on to some news in regards to the former Prince Andrew and the investigation taking place over suspicion of misconduct in public office. Now, the suspicion of misconduct in public office is really a broad banner for various crimes, and the police are looking into such offenses as sexual misconduct and corruption. They appealed Friday for witnesses and potential victims to come forward, and in February, Royal Lodge and his home in Sandringham were searched, and it is understood that evidence was found during that search. So just because Andrew lost his titles and obviously Royal Lodge, that doesn't mean the Andrew issue view for the royal family just fades away. So as these investigations continue, this is something that will really be this looming shadow over the royals, and how they continue to navigate that will be interesting. And I mean, the fact that they're asking for more witnesses and victims to come forward isn't just something that can really just be tossed to the side and shut away. People are still going to be obviously talking about it, and they will continue to do so. And lastly, it was announced that the Duke and Duchess of Edinburgh will undertake a 3-day visit to Portugal to mark the 640th anniversary of the Treaty of Windsor. This is the first visit by members of the royal family since 2011, when Charles and Camilla visited, and this trip will kick off June 1st. And that is going to take us to the end of this episode. If you liked it and want to hear more, please make sure you do all the things like follow, subscribe on whatever platform you are tuning in from. Join me next week where we will recap the week in royal news once again.